book. Have you read it? No.
I read some of the drafts though, like when they sent them in and stuff. So that was really cool. But yeah, man, work's been good, dude. It's been busy. Now with the strike over and everything.
Yeah, so regarding the strike, how relieved are you that the strike is fully over, actors and writers?
It's so good to see, just because like that's, in essence, our entire department was like sort of immobilized and they couldn't really activate on any of the information.
Let's stay quiet on set and then, ready in there? Yeah. Okay, and in 5, 4, 3.
Hello everybody, welcome to the first pilot episode of Cohn and Tishbi Unleashed. Today, I have Nick Freeland here, my first guest. And yeah, so Nick, describe your childhood and how like growing up was.
Yeah.
Where are you from?
Absolutely. So I'm from northern New Jersey, county called Bergen County. Super upper middle class, pretty safe place to grow up, but similar to LA in the sense that you drive 15 minutes outside of your bubble and you can end up in like a drastically different neighborhood with maybe not so much of a clean or safe reputation around it. So I was very grateful for where I grew up, and I was born in New York City in Queens, and then once my younger sister was born, the 5 of us in an apartment in Columbus Circle was a little too small. So then my dad took us out to the suburbs, and that's where I was at until I was 18.
So tell me what type of student were you in high school, and how were your grades and stuff?
So I was always pretty consistent with my grades, about like a B to A- type of student, but I was a little bit of a loudmouth and a little bit of a troublemaker. I honestly struggled with something that I was later learned was oppositional defiance. So that's where like you don't really recognize or respect your elders or the people in charge of you. And that's something I definitely learned the hard way in high school, just through like getting in little tiffs and maybe like speaking back to teachers and different like coaches and instructors when maybe I shouldn't have. So a few too many trips to the principal office later, I learned to sort of keep that version of me in check. And I've come a long way, man, from that little grom.
So regards to where you are today, what would you say kind of led you to show you what you wanted to pursue for the rest of your life?
Yeah. So while I'm still working bits and pieces of that out right now, I feel like it's an everyday process. You're learning about yourself and trying to discover what's best and what's right for you, what aligns with your skill sets. I'd say a real turning point came from right when I was your age, when it was time like towards the middle and end of my junior year, and my mom and dad were really getting serious with me about looking for colleges and different universities to apply to. And what really set my whole sort of future in motion was I took stock into what was around me and what I had known best. And my dad worked on Wall Street, and he never felt too fulfilled by it, and it never really like satiated his inner desires. Like he would leave the house early, get home super late, would be too tired to hang out with us, and we'd only really get like 2 days a week to really like kick it with my dad. And he never felt like totally intrinsically rewarded from his job and that experience working on Wall Street. So I thought, well, you only get one shot at life, might as well pick something that stimulates me and excites you and breathes passion and fire into your life. So I took stock of the things that I enjoyed most, and it was telling stories and helping people and film and television. So once I sort of had all of that compiled in my mind at 17 years old, I just thought, well, let me give being a filmmaker and working in the entertainment industry a shot. And so I applied to a ton of film schools, went to Syracuse for 4 years. And now
Syracuse Newhouse, right?
Yes, yeah, their communications program has a pretty good film program, which was a lot of fun.
How was that, and what was it like?
Yes,
Program?
so Syracuse was definitely more of a campus type of university, definitely not a city school. The city of Syracuse itself is kind of lower par. It's definitely not a metropolitan booming area,
Nothing
but
like LA.
nothing like LA. But the campus itself was a safe place, and a place that I met a lot of great people and learned a tremendous amount, and it empowered me to do different activities. So like I got to study abroad in Madrid while I was at college and traveled to like 18 different cities in 4 months, which was incredibly exciting and rewarding experience. And then I also got to spend a semester in Los Angeles while I was a senior at Syracuse. And that was like a test run to see what my future could entail if I pursued life in entertainment. And it went great, and now I'm back here.
So out of all the places you went abroad for Syracuse, out of all of them, which one stood out like the most to you?
Yeah, I would probably have to say, for me personally, Italy spoke to me the most, and I think that may be a little biased because I spent my spring break there, and it was one of the only countries that I managed to hit a lot of different cities within. So like I spent 2 days in Rome, 3 days in Florence, and then 4 days in the Amalfi Coast with a couple friends from home who were all studying in different places. So Italy holds a special place in my heart, also because like that's where half of my heritage is from. Like my mom's side of the family is Sicilian. So I was extremely grateful for that experience, and I'd say Italy definitely has my heart.
Are you very similar to your parents, and if not, like how are you guys different?
Yeah, so I think I have bits and pieces of both of them sort of combined. I'd say I get my oppositional defiance that I touched on earlier from my mom, and I feel like I get my work ethic from my dad. My dad's an incredibly hard worker, and he always gets the job done. He makes the sacrifices. He puts work in front of other things that other people may think are more important, but he was always like, if he gives his word to someone, he lives up to it, and it was his bond. So I like to believe that I have bits, pieces of that as well, but there are definitely parts of my parents that I feel like were lost on me, and that's not always for the worst. Like you're not supposed to be a carbon copy of them.
Yeah, of
I
course
feel
not.
like you're definitely supposed to take the bits and pieces that they give you, and then once you reach a certain age, you can sort of pick and choose the parts that you want to keep and the parts that you want to let go, especially as you get older.
Have there ever been any like crucial mistakes that have actually made things better in your life?
Wow, that's a really good question. And yeah, I mean, if we can get real here, I could definitely think of a few. When I was in college, I ended up breaking one of my ankles leaving a party, walking home. At this point, I was under the age of 18. I was under the age of 21, so I wasn't allowed to legally drink. And Syracuse University didn't want to assume any liability for my injury, so they illegally took my blood at the scene where I was injured and then made a case for the fact that because I was an underage and intoxicated, I wouldn't be able to press any charges. Not that I would have pressed any charges, but because I was exposed for drinking underage at Syracuse, I got put on probation. So because I was put on probation during my sophomore year of college, I wasn't able to study abroad or study in LA because you lose the privilege to utilize those programs. So it took a lot of internal thinking and hard work for me to find a solution to that, which I did, and it ended up being a blessing in disguise because I really buckled down and I appealed to the Office of Students' Rights and Responsibilities at Syracuse for about a 2-month period. I worked on an appeal letter and I compiled a bunch of different references on my character from different respectable people that I had contact with, and I compiled a real case to get myself off of probation ahead of time so that I would be able to utilize their programs. And it was actually what I think really did it over the edge was I signed up for a wilderness therapy retreat over the summer for after my sophomore year of college, and that's where you go with a group of similarly
Troubled people?
Yeah, troubled children, and it's supposed to provide you perspective on the world, and my trip was in Africa, so I ended up because I injured myself, was put on probation at Syracuse, and was almost not able to pursue my really important goal of going abroad and to Los Angeles, I signed myself up for this wilderness therapy program and ended up learning a tremendous amount about myself and also the world at large, and just how lucky and grateful and blessed that I should always be. And it turned out to work. My appeal was approved, my probation was reduced, and I was able to participate in those activities. So that was definitely a mistake that in the long run, I mean, I couldn't imagine who I would be if it wasn't for that.
Yeah. And would you say from being in Africa for the wilderness retreat, did it shape you as a different person?
Yeah, I could definitely say that it did. It's hard to keep at the front of your mind because once time passes, you just get so far removed from it. But it's definitely one of the experiences in my life that I try to revisit the most. It's like going to Nairobi. There's a slum. It's the second largest slum in the world behind Bangladesh and India, and it's called KBEV. And it's a mile by square mile plot that has over 1 million people in it. And me and
7 people in one.
Yeah, in like 1 mile by 1 mile square, and it's all corrugated steel houses, and there's an open sewer system, and it was some of the most like dirty and some of the most impoverished people and families that I'd ever seen. But the perspective that you gain from going to a place like that is, while these people are, have no money and barely any food and barely any clean drinking water, they were still living their lives and laughing and with each other and like dancing, and there was music, and there'd be one TV playing a soccer game, and there would be like over 100 people lined up, and like it was just, they were all still together and happy. And to see so many people live their lives with joy while having so little provided me with such a different perspective about my own life and the blessings that I have. And it just gave me a newfound realization about how lucky we all are over here, and how much better we have it that we do have like clean drinking water and access to food pretty easily.
It's crazy to think that the little things, people appreciate them in other parts of the world much more than we do, and it's right in front of us,
Yeah, it was definitely an eye-opening experience.
Yeah, I bet. And like it really proves that not everything in life is about success, It's about just like having family around, keeping the people that you're close with around, and just like sharing moments with them,
100%.
Well, to get back on track, have you had any mentors that have had a significant impact on you and where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely you just touched on family. I mean, I would say my dad is probably my biggest inspiration and my mentor. We call each other soulmates just because like we're very aligned, and if he's having a bad day, I'm having a bad day, and vice versa. So I would say he's been a very positive and large impact on my life in terms of a mentor, as well as my older brother, who is like my best friend in the world. I'm extremely close with. And I'm very proud to say another one of my mentors whose work ethic inspires me and whose achievements inspire me is your dad and my boss, Cohn, an incredible talent agent over at CAA where I work. And I can definitely say that his guidance and leadership and work ethic has instilled within me a great amount of confidence in not only myself, but in like the industry as a whole. And I've been so grateful to work for him, and he's definitely one of my biggest mentors in Los Angeles and in general.
Yeah, but also my dad wouldn't be where he is today without you, so always keep that in mind as well.
I appreciate that, man, and I'm about the biggest fan of your dad as I could be, and I'm so grateful to him and his guidance and support and mentorship that he's provided me over the year and a couple months that I've worked under him.
So I remember you saying from a young age your dad was working on Wall Street and wasn't always present because, working on Wall Street is a very time-consuming job. To be fair, you're leaving the house very early to go to the city and coming back, commuting home.
Exactly.
Did you notice anything from his work ethic that you've implied into your own?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
What's so about it?
Absolutely. So I think what it just comes down to is my dad took his responsibilities extremely serious. So when he was given a task, he wasn't looking at the quickest or the easiest way to get it done. He was looking at how he could get it done the best possible way for the best possible outcome. And if that took a little bit of extra time, it was something he was willing to give in order to get the job done right. And I think that combined with his honesty when it comes to communicating with people and what he thought he was capable of doing versus what he thought was maybe properly delegated to someone else, like beneath him, I think in terms of my dad's work ethic, like his honesty and his seriousness when dealing with a certain task is something that's been instilled within me just from watching him work and everything.
Have you, or would you like to recommend any 3 life-changing books that you've read that made you look at life a different way to any of the viewers?
Yeah, I mean, totally. In terms of self-help books, I think How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie should be like a basic human text, because even if you don't live by all of the rules, it sort of changes your perspective on what it means to communicate with another human being, and how it's never about being right, and it's never about proving your point. And what's really most important when connecting with someone is just getting across an emotion and sharing an experience. So I think How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie is a really good one. Something I just read recently, a little recency bias, is The Alchemist, which is a fiction book that the entire thing is sort of a metaphor for each individual's personal journey and giving into fate and destiny and just believing in oneself and one's own personal journey. And that's another book that is super easy read, totally recommend it, and so is How to Win Friends. And then for one more, I want to get a good one. I mean, I could say the 48 Laws of Power, but that's kind of basic. I think maybe Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman is another one that is kind of a harder read, but it's a great textbook and rubric on how to tackle different problems that you may be faced with in life, and how different problems require different approaches in order to solve them the right way. And I think that's a great little template on how to solve any problem, or at least distill the issues behind the problems that you have to solve. And that's pretty much half of the solution right there, is figuring out the problem. So I hope those are some books that you're going to check out, man.
And at any point in you reading those books, like opening the book in your hand and you like seeing what it said on the page, like were there any eye-opening lines that just completely grasped your eye?
Yeah. I mean, The Alchemist itself has such a good ending that I don't want to spoil it or anything, but I will definitely say the twist at the ending, if you sort of make it there to the end and understand it, is incredibly eye-opening and sort of relates back to the whole ethos of the book itself and the protagonist's own journey, which I've really, really liked. I'm trying to think if there's any exact lines from How to Win Friends and Influence People, but I would just say the lessons that you learn in that book. Like, one of them is like, never try to win an argument. You know, I might be paraphrasing it, but like that's one that's really stuck with me, because it's like, when you're arguing with someone, whether you're right or you're wrong, if you win the argument, you're just gonna make someone upset and a potential enemy. And it's not about like upsetting one another when you're having an argument. It's like, it's not even worth arguing in the first place. It's just about like sharing opinions and having an open dialogue and not criticizing someone. So I think that was a pretty insightful moment for me as well, when it really talked about like what an argument means and
just
how
accept people.
And how it's like never worth it to really get into a fight with someone, because if you win the fight, you lose the person. So
Yeah, there's like the risk to reward ratio is not worth it at all.
it's a lose-lose, you know. And that really opened my eyes.
Has there been like a quote that you've lived by from your young age to now that you look at to this day that motivates you?
Yeah, there are definitely a few. I'd say a little basic one is like "Come As You Are." That's Kurt Cobain.
From the song.
Yeah. I really identify with that, because I try to just accept everyone for how they are, and I try not to judge people or compare myself to them or vice versa. So I'd say "come as you are" is a quote that I really like identify with and try to live with to the fullest, just like accepting everyone for how they are and inviting people as well. There's another element to that. It's like allowing people to come into your world, and I try to be a very accepting person, and I'm a firm believer in two perspectives are better than one. So like I always seek guidance and different advice from people, and even if I don't necessarily agree with them, I think there's always something to learn from hearing another individual's perspective on something.
Yeah. And one last thing, what is a crucial piece of advice you'd give to any of the viewers listening to this?
Yeah, I mean, if this is mostly going to your high school, then the piece of advice I would give to high schoolers.
Oh, it's gonna be on YouTube and stuff.
And YouTube as well?
Yeah.
All right, so the piece of advice I would give to students, adults, everybody out there is I would really say that when you're growing up and you're at this sort of younger age, it's important to not take everything too serious. I mean, I remember when I was Gabriel's age and I thought it was the absolute end of the world when like my crush didn't text me back. But I realize now that I work 50 hours a week in order to put food on my own plate, and it's just like, but back then it just felt like the biggest thing in the world. And I think maintaining a certain perspective and going back to the beginning of our conversation, like having gratitude and counting your blessings and understanding that everything happens for a reason, and just really, really believing in that. I'd say that's the biggest thing, is just believing that everything in life happens for a reason, and you're gonna figure it out, and it's all gonna work out. That's the piece of advice that I would give.
All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the first episode of Cohn and Tishbi Unleashed. Nick, really appreciate you. Thank you.
Woo!
We out.
We out.
Hey, bro.
Dude.
Some good shit, bro.
Good shit, bro.